What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. We got a fun one today. I wanted to do something a little bit light and get your opinion and your feedback on your experiences with UAPs, as they call them now, or what we used to always call UFOs, unidentified flying objects. That was the name that was used for years and years, and now all of a sudden they're calling them UAPs or something like that. Unidentified aerial phenomenon, I believe is what they call it, or something along those lines. And they've changed it a couple of times, but I think they're trying to change the narrative for some reason. I don't know why, obviously, but I have been paying attention. There's been a lot more credible whistleblowers coming out, and this one guy, David Grouch, I think's how you pronounce his name. He was a high-ranking intelligence officer with the United States military, or he worked at the Pentagon or something like that. So this guy, he definitely was in a position to where he would have had knowledge of a lot of these different things, and he's coming out and just saying all kinds of stuff about basically the United States government has crashed alien vessels or whatever. I don't know how they acquired them. Some are arguing that we've actually shot them down. We have the technology to shoot them down. I kind of doubt that. I don't think that's very likely. But I wanted to go over some of the points real quick that this guy David Grouch made in this interview, and I highly suggest you go watch the whole thing. If nothing else, it was very fascinating. UFOs could be from another dimension was one of the things that he said that I thought was pretty interesting. Now, what do I think about that? I don't necessarily believe in multi-dimensions and stuff like this. We have no proof of a multiverse or multi-dimensional universe, so I really don't put much stock into that. I think they're either from Earth, like maybe deep in the ocean or deep inside the earth or something like that. But a lot of people have suggested that they've seen UFOs going into the sides of mountains and stuff and just disappearing. Maybe they're going through some sort of a cave or a tunnel system that we can't see because who knows, maybe it's cloaked or whatever. There is a lot of talk about that these vessels have the capability of at least cloaking when they're working the right way. And I've seen a couple of reports here. An Air Force guy, an ex-pilot, came out and said, well, you know, if their technology is this advanced, then why are they crashing? Well, any number of reasons. I mean, at the end of the day, if it is an actual mechanical device, this spaceship, right? If it is a mechanical device, well, you know, they have mechanical failures, I assume, just like we do. Maybe not a blown radiator hose, but something along those lines could probably make the vessel crash. It could be changes in the atmosphere or whatever that's going on. Maybe it's a thunderstorm or whatever's going on. Maybe the UFO is susceptible to lightning. We have no idea. Maybe they hit a flock of birds or something, a flock of seagulls, right? And maybe that got into the engine jets and made them crash land. We don't really know. So it's really interesting that he says they could be from another dimension. What do you think? Are UFOs from our dimension, or are they from some other dimension that we're unaware of and they're able to travel through space and time and get into our dimension somehow? I don't know. Anything's possible. I don't think it's very probable for that to be the answer. They could also be alien life, so from another planet or another solar system, or who the hell knows. If they've got that kind of technology that they can fly these cloaked vessels who can hover silently, you know, just sit there for hours at a time and hover, and it seems that they're able to bend space and time to propel their vehicle through the, you know, atmosphere or whatever. And again, I'm most fascinated when I hear these stories of the UFOs going straight into the ocean at full speed and not even making a wave or a splash or anything. That tells me there's something surrounding the ship that's giving them the ability to manipulate gravity or space and time or something like that. And I think that's how they're flying their vessels. One of the other things this guy David Grouch said was the Vatican is on they're in on the cover-up. So they know a lot more than they're letting on, and that's no surprise. We've all seen the different, what was that Tom Hanks movie where I can't remember the name of it, but basically he's inside the Vatican and they're in that secret vault down there below. I'm sure all that stuff is real. They've probably got all kinds of secret stuff at the Vatican that they don't want the world knowing about for whatever reason. You could have a whole argument or debate about why our government and the Vatican and other governments around the world have hidden this information from the people. Maybe it's that they don't really know any more than we know, and they don't want to say, hey, we don't know what these things are, because that's a susceptibility, a vulnerability, defensively, for our nation. I don't know, but the Vatican's in on it as well. This guy, David Grouch, said that they have massive craft, like the size of a football field is what I remember he said one time in the video. And you should go watch that interview. It was really fascinating. I think the guy's telling the truth. David Grouch said private contractors are storing and trying to reverse engineer UFO technology. So, I mean, could it be? You look at some of these devices and how fast the smartphone has progressed or advanced compared to a lot of other devices that have taken years, like the automobile. The automobile, it has advanced to a point. Now I think that we're going backwards. We've gotten rid of the good stuff on the automobiles. I think we hit the pinnacle of automobile technology in like the late 90s sometime. And anything after that's just been BS that's been tacked on to meet government requirements and government regulations and restrictions and all this garbage, right? So, cell phones is a better example of how fast our technology went from, back in the 80s when the first cell phones were around. They were giant, big things with a big giant antenna on them, and only the super rich had them, right? Because they were, like $5,000 for a cell phone back when they first came out, right? And now you look at them and you can go get one for, a couple, $200 or $300 that's probably has more power, computer power than the first space shuttle we sent to the moon, supposedly, if you believe that story. I don't know. And there's everything I think about. There are other stories that go along with that, and you could go down any number of rabbit holes. Like when I think of the moon, there are a lot of people that claim the reason we don't go back to the moon, we stopped going there. They believe we really went, but they say the reason we stopped going was because we discovered some alien base on the dark side of the moon or something like that, and they instructed us not to come back. So who's to say? The governments around the world could have already been contacted by this advanced species, and maybe they're telling them and instructing them to behave in the way they are. I don't know. That could explain the one world order. I don't know. Just things to think about. So massive craft, not just little bitty flying saucers, the size of a football field. And we just recently saw, like a week or two ago, I believe it was a group of Marines that were doing some training or something, and they supposedly spotted a triangular craft. And it's probably one of those ones that's about the size of a football field. And I don't know if that was real or not, but I saw the video a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty intriguing. I've never seen anything like that myself, but it looked like they were fairly close to it, and they said it was dead silent. It made no noise. How can something like that, with that much mass, sit there and hover and not make a sound? I don't know. Unbelievable. And also another question for the skeptics out there, why in the world would a UFO craft have those lights on it like that? I mean, it's obviously trying to draw attention from the ground, from anybody on the ground, or it doesn't care. I don't know. I can't quite understand that. But it's interesting to me. Why in the world would the thing light up? You couldn't see anything else except for those that V pattern light show that they were putting on, and I don't understand why they would do that. UFOs have gotten aggressive at times, David Grouch says. So we've all heard the stories. If you follow the UFO scene over the years, you've heard the stories about back in the 60s or 70s up in Montana somewhere. I think they were doing like nuclear drills, or they were just readying all the missiles. They weren't really launching, but they were just getting them ready, like as an exercise. Well, suddenly they were in the middle of doing this at this, I think they had Minuteman rockets there, or missiles, and if I'm not mistaken. But they had some kind of, big nuclear warheads, and they were running drills to make sure they were ready to go. And all of a sudden, they were powering everything up, and supposedly a flying saucer or a UFO of some kind came over the top of where the missiles would launch and shut down all of the computers, all the controls. Everything went black, is the stories that I've heard. And so they definitely showed that they're able to take out our nuclear launching capability in an instant, and we couldn't turn it back on. So I'm sure that probably changed the way we look at UFOs forever, from our perspective in the United States, because that's one of our major defenses, especially back in those days. So anyone that would have the control to shut that off, even though it was just an exercise, that had to have scared the top brass, the Joint Chiefs or whoever it was that made the final decision on how we were going to handle UFOs. So people have been killed to protect the secret, David Grouch said, and I thought that was a bombshell. He's basically saying that they have shut people up, and we've all heard stories of people just suddenly disappearing or getting in too deep, getting in too close, and then, whatever. They just disappear. They end up, dying of a heart attack or whatever, and there's all kinds of stuff that links back to the CIA's abilities to get rid of people in an indiscreet way like that. Make it look like you died of natural causes, like a heart attack or something. Look up the heart attack gun and all sorts of other things that they have done. But at the end of the day, when I watch the video, not just the clipped parts, you got to find the full 45-minute video of David Grouch giving this interview. He seemed sincere to me. There were a couple of questions that the commentator or the announcer asked him, and it kind of made him a little uncomfortable, I could tell, just by his body language, but he still answered him. At least to me, it seemed truthful. So, very interesting. You add that to the fact that, I believe it was last weekend in Las Vegas, green blue light comes out of the sky, and a police officer catches it on his body cam, and then suddenly a teenage kid calls into the 911 office and says there's an 8 to 10 foot tall creature. And I think he said creatures, so there were more than one, creatures walking around in his backyard, and they had gotten out of a UFO that landed in his backyard. And for whatever reason, when the police were arriving on the scene, I think they said it was because of privacy reasons, but they wouldn't release the body cam of when they went into the backyard. I've heard rumors that the kid has video of these aliens, which would be my first question. Where's the video? I mean, if I saw, 8 to 10 foot creatures that were unidentified in my backyard, I would have one of two responses: grab my phone and record it, or grab my shotgun and start taking care of business and getting these creatures out of my backyard, because I got livestock and stuff back there. I don't know what they're there for. So where's the video? Apparently they didn't have any guns. The vibe I was getting off the interviewer in the interview when they were interviewing this kid was they didn't have any guns, and they called 911. And so you could tell the police were a little bit shaken up by it, because when the last little clip of the body cam footage, the policeman tells the kid, hey, if you see any 9 foot creatures in your backyard, y'all just need to take care of them. Don't call me, basically. He's like, hey, and I think he was kind of obviously joking a little bit, trying to lighten the mood, but I could hear a nervousness in the guy's voice, so he was sincere. The police saw something, a green blue light. It landed in this kid's backyard. He called 911. All the timestamps seemed to line up. I saw a still picture of the indentation that was left in the kid's backyard. And I mean, it looked like a big, either almond shape or maybe a big sphere shape. I'm not sure. It was a little bit oblong, but there definitely was an impression there. So again, I don't know if the kid's going to release video or what, but I wanted to get your take on all this stuff, because UFOs, whether we like it or not, or we think it's a distraction or not, and it could be, they're in the news. They're on the headlines almost every day. And you can't help but see these things and go, wait a minute, all the way back to when they were talking about the Tic Tac UFO and all these Navy naval surveillance footage, video, and radar footage were released here recently. And the one where a satellite, or maybe it was a drone, caught an image of a sphere over in Afghanistan. So they've got tons and tons and tons more UFO footage that they're not allowing us to see. It's much like the January 6th mystery tapes and that LGBTQ person that shot up that Nashville Christian school, and their manifesto just disappeared into the ether, So it's sort of like that. I think there is, they probably don't call it the X-Files, but I bet there are groups of people that are much like the X-Files in the way that they handle this sort of stuff. They probably go to people that are, in their ranks, and they tell them, hey, don't tell anyone about this. This is top secret. This is technology that's so far beyond us. We're afraid to even tell the public about it, because that will show that there are other, it would scare people. It would show that we're incapable of fighting these things, whatever they are. So I look forward to reading your comments on this video. What do you guys think all this is? Are UFOs aliens? Are they extra dimensional creatures that are coming here from another dimension? Are they coming from inside the earth and they're actually, living under the ocean or something like this in massive cities or massive, facilities, for lack of a better word, that we just don't know about because of maybe cloaking or because of the depth under the ocean? There's that, what's it called? The Mariana Trench or something. It's so deep that we've never put a human down there. I think we've sent some probes down, but, never a human being, has ever been that deep because of the pressures down there. So, are there places on the earth that are unexplored? Sure. Sure there are. Yeah. Is it a coincidence that you tend to see UFO activity near military facilities? Could it be that it's not extraterrestrial or alien creatures or extra dimensional? Perhaps it's our own military that have super advanced, vehicles that they can fly around and make these 90-degree turns on a dime. And I don't know how that works either. But let me tell you on the way out a quick story and why I tend to believe. I tend to believe in UFOs. I still don't know what they are exactly, but I tend to believe they exist, because back in the 80s when I was a kid, we were visiting some family in another state, and it was in an area of this state where it was very remote. Hardly any lights around, so you weren't getting all the light pollution from the big cities. So you could see the Milky Way, you could see the stars, you could see nature the way it was intended, the night sky the way it was intended to be viewed, right? Well, I'm out there as a kid, and there wasn't a lot to do out in this area. It was really remote. So we didn't have cell phones. We didn't even have video games or anything like that. We just had to make up and come up with, whatever we were going to do that day. We had to come up with it on our own using our imagination. I know, novel concept. But anyway, back into the story. We're out there. It's probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I would guess. And I looked up because I saw something moving. And it was moving in a way where, at first I thought, oh, it's probably just an airplane really high up or something like that. But it caught my eye and I was watching it. It looked different to me somehow. And it was not in our atmosphere. I believe it was out in space. I don't believe it was in our atmosphere. But this little glowing ball is going, and then suddenly it makes a 90-degree turn in the middle of the air. Just like this, going straight, and then boom, straight over. As far as I know, we have no technology that's capable of doing that without killing the pilot, right? And so I ran in the house and got the rest of the adults and my other cousins, and we all came out there and we're looking at this thing. Well, then this one light you see moving, and it didn't look like it was moving really fast to the naked eye, but again, I think it was out in space. So out in space, it was probably hauling ass. Anyway, this thing's coming like this, and then suddenly we see another one. And they're definitely on a collision course or an intercept course. And then there's a third one. And so these three different points of light in space were moving together. And sure enough, they all touched and became one light, one beam of light, one, orb of light, whatever you want to call it. And we were all just like, wow, what is that? Because it was unexplainable. There was no weather balloon or weather phenomenon that you could look at and explain this weird thing that's going on, because you heard no sounds from jet engines. It was just a totally unique experience. But this is what sealed the deal. We stood there and watched, and it was probably, the whole ordeal was probably 10 minutes is how long it took for all these things to come together. And then they sat there for a few minutes. I don't remember how long. I was a kid. And then suddenly, this is what I'll never forget. Suddenly, they all left in the blink of an eye, way faster than they came together. Honestly, the best way I can describe it is like warp drive on Star Trek, or, the way it looks when they engage the, I don't remember what they call it on Star Wars, but when they engage the hyperdrive or whatever, and suddenly the stars are like leaving trails like that. It did that as they dispersed. They went their own separate directions. And there were 3 objects like that. And to this day, I've never seen anything more compelling than that. That's my UFO experience. I've never seen anything up close or looked over and you could see an alien in the window or anything like that. The time I saw one, it was way out there, way away. And I'm going to guess close to the moon, because I remember the moon was full that night. And this is another thing that stood out to me, was whatever this object was, it was bright enough that even with a relatively full moon, it might not have been totally full, but it was pretty bright moon. Even with the moon being pretty bright, you could still see these things. And that made me think that, yeah, they're out in space, they're not in our atmosphere, and whatever this was, it had such advanced technology that I am, at least at that time in my life, and even today, I'm pretty sure we don't have any technology that's like that. It's all just a, Star Trek or Star Wars fantasy, at least as of now. But I find that fascinating. It's one of the things that, I grew up listening to Coast to Coast and Art Bell, and I love that sort of stuff. So if you've got a UFO story, let us know down in the comments. I'd like to see how many of my viewers resonate with this. How many people have seen this? If you think we're full of crap, maybe you think that thing that I saw when I was a kid was just some weird light phenomenon. Hey, that's fine if you think that, because I can't even explain what it is. I'm just telling you in my gut, it moved with intention. It wasn't a light phenomenon because of the 90-degree turn. And the way they left like that made me think that, okay, this is not human, not of human origin. There is one other possibility that I didn't mention, and it could be the most realistic possibility, is these things could be, angels or demons or, spiritual creatures. Maybe there was something that I saw there that was some sort of a spiritual being or a sign that I just wasn't able to interpret. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. Have you seen UFOs? Have you seen them up close? Especially you guys that have been pilots and stuff over the years. Let us know your experiences down in the comments. And look forward to reading them. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you found this interesting. And until then, we'll see you next time.